Okay, so starting with chapter 1, question 11 says, which of the following is used to validate an e-commerce transaction?
Is it?
So for example, what's an e-commerce transaction and what would you be using to
Is
validate?
it identification?
Can you use identification for validation?
Authentication.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Signature?
Identification, I'm just asking. I'm not saying it's not correct.
I'd say identification out of them.
Okay, if you check non-repudiation, what's that? What does that mean?
That means when the user can't deny that they've taken an action.
Okay, so how does that happen?
So so you do a digital signature.
Okay, so if you send, not necessarily digital signature, if you send a message and you encrypt it with your private key, and somebody with your public key unravels that message, you cannot deny you didn't send the message because the message was encrypted with your private key.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's not e-commerce transaction. Good. So least privilege, what does that mean?
That's just giving privilege to users that that only need it to do their job.
Yeah, they need just the level of privilege that any user would need to do their job. Excellent.
Yeah.
Nancy, I'm waiting for
Yeah.
you to answer this one. Of identification.
It's a way to identify who's logging into the system, isn't it?
Well, that's a good one. Yeah, it's a way of identifying whoever that person is from entering into an environment. It could be in a system, it could be into a secure environment. So just identification, it could be an ID for defining who that person is, or for what the question here, when they say validate an e-commerce transaction, it's quite tricky. But the answers they've given you here just unveils what the answer should be. So it's definitely not repudiation, not least privilege. And you can now be looking between signature mainly for hashing, really, not for validation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, can you use the signature to validate an e-commerce transaction? You don't really, that's not what you want to use signatures for. What you want to use signatures for is to validate whether information has changed from one point to another.
Mm-hmm.
So identification is looking like the answer. So let's check. No, it's signature. Yeah, validation. It's signature. I missed it myself. Can you imagine?
Signature.
It's A. They say A there.
Question 11.
Yeah.
Go down.
Number 11.
A. It says,
Validation is used
oh,
to validate transactions. Ah,
is it?
I
It
missed
just
it.
explains everything, isn't it?
Yeah, you said?
It explains everything. It's used in e-commerce validation.
Yeah, least
No, it's just one answer.
Users are
This
granted access.
privilege ensures that users are granted access only to the resources they need to perform their job. Identification is used to verify person's identity, not validate transactions.
Verify
Verify person's identity prior to issuing credentials. A written signature is not used in e-commerce. Yeah, that looks
validate.
Yeah, that's really, really not funny. That's really, really funny. Non-repudiation for e-commerce. I will say non-repudiation is what we use for emails, for sending emails, not for e-commerce transaction.
So basically, if you like do a transaction online, e-commerce transaction, then you can't say that you didn't make a transaction.
But you don't do that's not you don't use your private key to do that, do you?
No.
So we are talking about non-repudiation here, not well.
I know, that's quite tricky though.
That's very tricky. That's not straightforward at all. Imagine, I actually was thinking those are the only two
I was
options:
actually thinking it's in the identification.
identification or signature. But I was saying, okay,
No,
signature.
but then I thought signature is not used.
Signature can be ruled out because it's just for verifying, not for validating. Then identification. What I was thinking it would be, even though
because in the book, it says non-repudiation ensures that a party cannot believably deny taking an action.
Yes.
So you can't. Yeah, because they're trying to say, okay, what? I don't know.
So which of the following is used to validate an e-commerce transaction? Can never be non-repudiation. I don't know where they came with that from. You are validating an e-commerce transaction and you're using
because it's a
transaction that has happened, right? An e-commerce transaction that has happened. You're trying to validate it. And you're using non-repudiation. How do you use non-repudiation to validate something that has already
it's because, like I said, if you're making a transaction, and you use non-repudiation to validate that, then you can't say another day that you didn't make that transaction because you've done non-repudiation.
To prove, and to validate is not to prove.
Yes, to prove.
So non-repudiation, it does go under that, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you're proving.
Okay.
You're trying to prove that you made an e-commerce transaction.
Yes, that means, well, I'm trying to see where the non-repudiation came in, because we are not using any kind of key private.
No keys involved, no.
Yeah, we are just using our own personal credentials to log in. So you are trying to validate a transaction. So you are trying to use maybe a transaction ID that to validate, to say, okay, this transaction actually happened.
Yes, exactly.
In your account.
Yes.
Because there's a PIN that is associated to your account that is unique.
Yes.
Well, that's really deep. If it's in that light, thinking about it.
I got confused.
Non-repudiation. Non-repudiation to me would have always been anytime I'm sending an email to someone, or I'm doing not a transaction, mainly then I'm able to use my personal key to encrypt that information before sending it. For example, my PGP, I can do that with PGP. But when you are saying e-commerce transaction, which is public, what of when people can break into your account and actually use your stuff to, anyway, anybody can still get your private key and still use it. So that will not even hold. Well, let's leave that as it is. That's good. That's a good one. Which of the following is a security principle designed to prevent fraud by ensuring that job responsibilities are divided?
Is it separation of duties?
Yeah, separation.
That's simple. An organization grants users access only to system resources that they need to perform their job.
Least privilege.
Okay. The organization has a responsibility to investigate risk associated with new purchases. What is this?
An organization has a responsibility to investigate risk.
Oh God, it's either due care or due diligence. I get confused.
Is it
due diligence, I think. Oh.
I'll go with due process.
Cannot be due process. There are only two. It can either be due care or due diligence.
I think it's due care.
So the organization has a responsibility to investigate risks associated with new purchases. Is due care.
Yay.
Due diligence will be you doing what you are supposed to do when you are supposed to do it.
Oh. Okay.
If an
due care,
organization has a
due care is,
responsibility,
due care is,
that's due diligence. Due diligence is you are taking the necessary precautions that you are supposed to be taking.
Mhm.
So the organization has the responsibility of investigating risk associated with
new
new
purchase.
purchases. I think looking at due diligence. Okay.
Investigative step. Okay. Investigative step. Okay. Due diligence. Yeah.
So which of the following statements accurately describes due care? So it's the practice of implementing security policies and procedures to protect resources. I'm thinking that's what it is. Then due care eliminates
Yeah.
risk. No, a company is not responsible for exercising due care over PII.
Nope.
The
Organization can be
organization
used.
cannot be sued if they fail. That's not true. If they
No.
fail to exercise due care over.
Is the practice
It's
of
A,
implementing
definitely.
security policy.
So 14 is what? What's answer to 14? B, due diligence. Yeah, I was right. So due diligence is something, what they are supposed to do, they're actually doing it. That's due diligence. Due care will be
Wait, what does this mean? Investigate risks
Well-
associated with new purchases. What does that mean?
Well, you know, we have a word, due process, that it's
due
a different
process
thing.
is different. Due process, when you say due process, that's just slang. That's not a security word.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not
It's-
even a term in
The
that.
security term will be due care or due diligence.
No, it's a term, but it's not a security term.
Yeah, it's not a
Because
security term.
they
Yeah.
use it, yeah.
Yeah. You are following, somebody's following due process, right?
Yes, excuse me.
Not a security.
I wanted to
Yeah.
know what does investigate risk associated with new purchases mean?
Investigate risk associated with new purchases. The bottom line there is the responsibility they have to do that.
Yeah.
So an organization has a responsibility. If that responsibility was not there, then you could interpret that away. But when they put the responsibility, so you are doing what they are supposed to do it, so they should do it. That's due diligence.
Okay.
Okay, so the organization has a responsibility to investigate risks. How do you investigate risk? To make sure that monitoring systems are everywhere, monitoring what's going on. So people that are signing in are actually people that should be signing in. People that should not have access are not actually having access. And all those things are being recorded, and somebody's somewhere monitoring what's going on within the organization. That's simple risk investigation or investigation. So when you talk about investigating risk associated with new purchases, that means there's a monitoring system in place, making sure that those new purchases are being monitored.
All right, makes sense.
Okay, let's do chapter 3. I think chapter 2, we already know chapter 2 very well, but maybe I should still
try, please.
Yeah, still dig some on that. Sometimes some questions that they will be asking you in your interview questions. So you get to know the concepts, which is very good. Then so we are going to do question 5, 8, 10, and 11 on this one. 5, 8, 10, 11. Which of the following choices does not ensure that a password is strong? Ensuring that the password is of a significant length, ensuring that the password is changed frequently, ensuring that the password has a mixture of different character types, ensuring that the password does not include any part of the user's name.
It's B.
Okay. Yeah, because it's not part of the password, right? So ensuring that the password is changed frequently. Yeah, choice does not ensure that the password is strong. So that necessarily does not mean that the password is strong. Okay. Do you agree, Nancy?
Yes.
Let's do 8. Which of the following choices that is not used for biometrics? Fingerprint, retina scan, voice recognition, pattern recognition, keyboard dynamics?
D.
Keyboard.
Patter. Keyboard dynamics is.
Who's saying keyboard? Who's saying patter?
I think patter.
Who is saying keyboard?
I said keyboard.
Pattern recognition.
What is patter?
What does that even mean? What does pattern mean?
Exactly.
I
Didn't
know
made it up.
I know if it has said pattern recognition,
Mm-hmm.
if it's pattern, then that could be biometrics. Keyboard dynamics is also related to biometrics, but on its own, it's not biometrics. So, but the relationship it has to biometrics is somebody that's going to be typing in the information on the keyboard. So the dynamics of that person is what the biometrics will be referring to. That's why they say keyboard dynamics. So this question too is a bit confusing.
But I think it's D.
Patter, I don't know what patter is. So D, I'll go for D because E
Patter.
E has some, I would have chosen E, but E has some relationship to human interference, so which makes it valid. So patter, I don't know what patter is. So patter will be, yeah, B was the answer for number 5. And D, pattern recognition, is not specific method used for biometric, but fingerprints, retina, voice recognition, face recognition, and all biometrics methods. See, they didn't even mention keyboard dynamics.
Yeah.
So, but keyboard dynamics should be one of those different biometrics patterns. So that's fine. Let's just do 9. When evaluating biometric system for accuracy, what should you consider? That's
CER.
Why? Okay. I'll say Nancy. What's the answer?
When I'm evaluating the biometric system for accuracy, I don't know.
Is CER? What is CER?
I'm not about this book.
You have the book. Come on. You even have the earlier version.
I know. No, you know what it is. You know, I've not had the time to read one. After next week, I'll have to. I've not had the time to go back to my book to read.
It's not going back. Well, anyway, you're right. Maybe it's not easy to just catch it at once. So, what's his name?
Rauda.
Rauda, what does CER mean?
It's crossover.
Correct.
Something.
Error
And it basically means when the
crossover error rate.
It's when FFR and false acceptance rate are the same.
When they cross, when they meet.
Yeah, when they cross.
When the false positives and the false negatives, where they meet, that's the crossover error rating.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is SSO? That's very important.
Okay. System that requires user connection once and use the same credentials for the entire session. And system that requires users to use different credentials. Nope. Secure system used for operation. Nope. Any network that employs secure access. Is A.
A would definitely be the answers because it has something to do with a user credentials, which is entered once, and then it automatically uses that same credentials every other session. So for example, when you enter your email address and you save your password and stuff, it automatically uses that password and that password and your identity to always log you in. You don't need to put in your credentials anymore.
No. Yeah.
The same thing with the different sites that you access. Maybe the first time you put in your credentials, the next time you don't have to.
Okay.
So single sign-on. So most of the time in the organization, every application that is in-house should adopt single sign-on. If they are not going to be adopting single sign-on, they must have a case for it or have, we have what we call the SNC That's this, or we have, maybe we'll call it a risk first. You have to raise a risk. Then with the risk score, then you will create the SNC, the security non-compliance. Write that down, SNC. If you use those kind of terminologies when you interview,
SMC.
security non-compliance, SNC. And you need to raise the risk first before you can raise the SNC, because it's the risk score that you're going to be putting into the security non-compliance that you're going to, that needs to be validated by the company. And the SNC is time-based, so it's not forever. So that security non-compliance is maybe after 1 year expires, you have to revisit the risk if you have not created a solution or a control for it.
So that's if you don't use SSO, right?
For example, that's just one instance. For example, when you're not using SSO, then you have to justify why you're not using it. Then maybe raise a risk for it, because you don't really want people to be putting their credentials every single time they're trying to access an application, except the application is really, really special to the organization and they don't need such user kind of access. Then they could actually automate it and make it a service account where users don't have any interaction with it. But it depends on what the application is doing. So which of the following is not used for single sign-on? So there are some solutions that are by default, they just do single sign-on. So which of these?
Kerberos is used, Kryptonite is used, Sesame is used, B is not.
This is my favorite pen.
Is that right?
It's correct. Okay, can you explain how you came up with B, decentralized authentication?
Because it's not decentralized, it's centralized authentication for SSO.
Yeah, SSO needs centralized authentication. Okay, good. So all the other ones, Kerberos, they all support SSO. Kryptonite. They get to know what Kryptonite is. Do you know what Kryptonite is? It's a kind of infrastructure. S is same. It is technology type as well, and Kerberos is a technology type. So understand how Kerberos work. So if I were you, like I'll just put down these three words: Kerberos, Kryptonite, and same, and go and check how the infrastructure of a Kerberos looks, and how Kerberos work, and how Kryptonite work, and how same work. Once I know how those three works, I would then add those as some skills that I have under my skill on my CV.
What can you say?
You said?
What can you say? Like,
oh yeah, understand Kerberos architecture, understand different architectures, then Kerberos, Kryptonite, same.
Okay.
Are they architectures?
Yeah.
Are they architectures? Are they architectures?
Kerberos is Kryptonite. I'm not sure. I don't know what that is. Then same is a single sign-on solution. Same. It's a type of architecture as well. So Kerberos is more like an infrastructure. You know what you call PKI, public key infrastructure. So Kerberos is one type of an infrastructure. I think it was created by Linux, but Microsoft is the one making use of it most of the time now, because of the way they use what we call ticket granting tickets. They use tickets for authenticating themselves, and yeah.
Microsoft used that.
Microsoft used that. Yes.
Okay.
Then we said 11, and what other number?
I can't really remember.
Let's just check anyone. Let's just say 15, for example. Of the following choices, what is not an example of technology that uses a one-time password?
One-time password. The biometrics. I think it's the. Is that right?
OPI means I know what SK is. I don't know what OPI is. Example of technology that uses a one-time password. Hardware-based token will use a one-time password. Biometrics. Is biometrics a one-time password? I don't know what that. I don't know.
I don't think.
This OTP, which will always be sent to you. So OPI, SKey, I think all of them. So biometrics is the one I'm thinking. Could be the answer there. Which of the following? I'm reading 16. Which of the following models? So what's your answer for that one?
I think C.
Okay, which of the following models helps to enforce the principle of separation of duties? Can you remember? This one you have to remember, otherwise you will not know it.
It's Clark Wilson and Bella
Separation of duties.
Ladapula.
I'm thinking it has something to do with one of the Chinese walls and Clark Wilson or something.
Oh no. Yeah, actually it might be.
I'm thinking so. I don't know. I don't know too. You just really have to remember those ones. We did 9, right? Crossover rating or crossover rate. We got
Yeah,
that.
you said as a B for that one. Question
Number
11.
9.
Yeah, number 9.
No. We said CER, right?
Yeah, CEAR. And then say question 10. A.
Single sign-on. Yeah, A. Single sign-on uses to log once. Yes, that's correct now, right?
Yes, and question 11 was B. That was right.
Yes, we're correct. Then yeah, both SK and OP use MD4 or MD5 to create hash based on one-time password. So they chose D. Hardware token asynchronized.
So what was D, sorry?
Not asynchronous. Asynchronous, not asynchronous. I think it's hardware-based token. Bella Padula model is an access control architecture that enforces confidentiality. Doesn't really explain anything. 13. Did we do 13?
We didn't do 13.
Yeah, we didn't do 13.
We did 15. 15. We said biometrics.
Then we did 16 as well.
And 16. Yes.
Biometrics was correct. 16. Clark Wilson, yes, Chinese wall.
And it was Chinese wall.
Yeah, you really have to remember this one.
I knew it was a Clark Wilson, but I didn't know if it was Chinese or Bellator.
You know, when I just see wall, I remember separation of duties.
Okay.
When there's a wall, there's a separation of duties somewhere.
What?
Where's the question? Where's the question? Can you go back to the question,
Can you go to question?
Yeah, 16. It says, which of the following models help to enforce principle of separation of duties? So I already knew Chinese wall is one of them, but I wasn't sure.
I knew it was a Clark Wilson because it said about separation. But with Chinese wall, it just said something about conflicts of interest. So I didn't understand that.
Yeah, conflicts of interest now. So it also has something to do with, well, if there's a conflict of interest, that means you need to separate your duties. So you need to separate so that there will not be conflict. You need to go to one side. If you have a conflict of interest, means you are on two areas, two different places that's conflicting. Let me put it that way. Then you need to leave one area so that there will be no conflict. So that's how I think about it. Okay. Let's go now. We've done 1 and 2, right? On Monday, we'll do more of that. We'll do more of these questions. We can cover to maybe 6, then continue with our class. But what we'll get to do now is just, let's go through these questions. Let's see if we can do it in 15 minutes. What do you mean by cybersecurity? Fact. Maybe I should just say, tell me about yourself.
Oh, I don't know what that.
When they tell me about yourself, what you should be looking out for is what's on your CV profile.
Profile.
Yeah, that's really your profile. That's really what it's about, what you're about. So for example, you can just say, I have been very keen on knowing, learning security. And of recent, I did my my first degree in cybersecurity, and I've taken an additional course, different additional courses, and I've worked in the cybersecurity firm like TIP Technologies, and I've done several security related type of work over these years, over this period. Yeah, I don't really want to mention number of years over this period, or maybe over the period of 12 months or 6 months. And I've learned quite a lot. I've been opportune to work with Splunk, different technologies, like understand different concepts in SSCP, in CISSP, in networking, and I've covered a lot in these areas. I've also had the opportunity to set up labs in for networking students in TIP Technologies, and also help to do a lot of troubleshooting around that space. And I've been able to audit I'm able to create a simple audit that we're able to gather information about risks affecting applications, which we were given a task to do, and I went off to do more research on the work that I've done. More research on the application to find out the different risks that are associated with it, and I came up with a statement of applicability, that's SOA, and which I submitted to the company director, and he was so pleased with the work that we did. Or you can maybe start from this, what I've just said now, right?
Yeah.
You can take that, modify it, and work on it. Well, I want you to start with your process, how you became entered in cybersecurity.
Yes, I'm just going to say something.
As a cybersecurity, yes.
What is statement of applicability again?
That's in ISO 27001. Statement of applicability is the document that contains the risk treatment that you've chosen. Sorry, the risks that you've decided to implement controls for, and the treatment that you applied to those risks.
So how do I say that I've done that? Like you just said something.
In ISO 27001, that's why you did it, right?
No, you're saying about risk.
Yeah. When
analysis.
When I had the opportunity to do a risk analysis, and I was able to come up with a statement of applicability that had the risk treatment that we finally chose for the risk that we decided to apply controls for.
Yeah.
So something simple. It's not then the statement of applicability. If you go to your ISO 27001 documentations, you might see the SOA there, or you can just Google what's SOA document online. And
excuse me. Also, as for ISO 27001, what are the key elements that we need to know?
Key element is auditing. There's no, all the key elements you need to know are there from I think this on Annex A is a full audit solution. So there's really no key element. The elements are very many.
ISO 27001.
Yes. So most times when we are doing our risk analysis, that's what we tend to use. We default to use the ISO 27001 model framework.
Okay.
So if I'm able to say that, maybe for an entry level, they can see that, oh, I've done one or two things in security, and they might want to say, okay, then start asking me questions based on maybe scenario-based questions, which I'm now going to write down. So anytime they're asking scenario-based question, try and write it down, because sometimes you might not be able to remember the questions after the interview, or you can even record it so that you can have a recording of yours. In combination, I'll read this question. Nancy, I hope you got what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you're recording it. So
Oh, a combination of technologies, processes, and practices used to protect networks, computer programs, and data from attack, unauthorized access. So very simple. You can state this, or you can say it in your own words. That will be very, very correct. What do you mean by cybersecurity? Using different ways for securing information online or secure information on any.
Excuse me, sorry for interrupting. Could you just send me a documentation of ISO 27001, because I've been looking on the internet and it's showing different things and it doesn't make sense. So I just want one documentation of how it works, like what is it and everything included in it, basically.
Yeah, I've sent you that. Doesn't come in one documentation. You have the videos, right?
Oh, I just wanted it all on one sheet or something.
No,
So
no,
it's
no.
easier.
How do I? You can't get it all in one. It doesn't work like that. It's even when you go to their documentation site, it's ISO 27001 is just a piece of ISO 27000. So there's ISO 27001, there's ISO 27002, ISO 27003, 2004, and they are all connected to ISO 27001.
Oh.
And there's ISO 27005, which talks more about the risk. ISO 27002 expands on what you have on ISO 27001 and tries and explain what you have on ISO 27001. But ISO 27005 deals more with the risk and expands on the risk that ISO 27001 has mentioned. So ISO 27001 has a lot of annexes. So I really didn't want to go too deep into that because it's something that you will have to understand as you go on or get along. Or when you have a job relating to ISO 27001, then you could actually pick that up. So what I've taught you so far inside 27001 is what you really need, which mainly hammers on the different aspects of technology. So it's not a all-in-one book that you can just find.
So ISO framework is a combination of policies and processes for organizations to use. Is that right? So it provides a framework to help organizations of any size or any industry to protect their information in a systematic and cost-effective way.
Yes.
Through the adoption of an ISMS.
Through the adoption of ISMS. So that ISMS is more like international standard for or international standard for security management. Something like that. But I'm not saying that's the meaning of the acronym. But ISMS is more like a management system for a security management system for an organization that organizations are meant to deploy within their environment. And that is where you now start applying those ISO 27001 principles.
I see. So does every organization follow this ISO 27001?
They should. It just gives, it's a standard. It's not like enforced. That's why it's a standard. So you can choose to follow that standard, you can choose to follow another kind of standard, which will also still have elements of ISO 27001 in it. So for example, some companies can choose to go on PCI DSS, and that PCI DSS has elements of ISO 27001 in it. So yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. I found it finally.
What do you have on your home network?
Oh, you did. Can you go through question 1 again, please? You went quite fast.
What do you mean by cybersecurity? I already finished that, right?
Is that okay, the answer?
It's okay, but in a layman's term, you could just say is a way of protecting any data that is online. So cybersecurity is concerned with protecting any data that's online.
Protected data online. Okay.
Yeah. So that's why cyber. So cyber referring to anything that is on a network somewhere that you can connect to.
Data online.
So a combination of technology processes and practices used to protect network computers, programs, and data from attack or unauthorized access. So yeah. I have Wi-Fi box which is connected to my smart TV, laptop, primary mobile phone. Good. I have changed the SSID to something suitable for me. I have 2 environments. This in use for 5 gigahertz. Okay.
That I've made a mistake.
Yeah, in use. Okay, you mean I
In
use the
yes,
5
I use.
gigahertz environment for all my devices. I've disabled this from working because it is more vulnerable to hacking. I have software firewall installed on my system. Very good. I've installed antivirus software on all my devices so they are secure. I've storage environment in case of ransomware attack. Excellent. I have cloud storage where I have where I have saved less sensitive information. Excellent.
Yay!
Good, very good. You kind of touched all the points, most of the points.
Yes.
Very good. So what is encryption? Why is it important? A process of converting data into an unreadable form to prevent unauthorized access and hence maintaining good protection. Good.
Data protection.
Yeah, data protection, maintaining data protection. So tell me the difference between systematic. You can make it even simpler for yourself. Say, what's encryption? Encryption is
basically converting plain text to ciphertext, and ciphertext is unreadable by the.
So yeah, just converting text to ciphertext. Finish. That's encryption.
Yes.
And only accessible by the intended recipient. And
An authorized user.
yeah, only accessible by the authorized recipient.
Recipient.
Or authorized user. It's good, the same thing.
Okay.
But authorized, that's when it comes to confidentiality, then that's when that one plays in. But just what's encryption is just changing plain text to ciphertext. Simple.
Okay.
So tell me the difference between
symmetric and asymmetric encryption.
Another question you might be asked is, okay, which you have, okay, yeah, what is CIA triad? So good. Yeah, so tell me the difference between symmetric and asymmetric encryption. Very good. Symmetric encryption uses single key for encryption and decryption. Asymmetric encryption uses different keys for encryption and decryption. Symmetric encryption is fast but more vulnerable. Asymmetric encryption is slow. Yes, when you say it's more vulnerable,
yes,
necessarily. More vulnerable, you not explain why it's more vulnerable. More vulnerable when the key is to be distributed to a large number of people. If you're going to be distributing the key to just 2 people, it's very secure. It's as secure as the asymmetric encryption.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only more vulnerable when you have a large number of people to distribute the keys to. So why symmetric encryption is good and is less vulnerable when you are distributing the keys is because the public key, anybody can have the public key, but you have the private key.
So do you decrypt with the public key and you encrypt with the...
Either. You can encrypt the public key and decrypt the private key, or encrypt the private key and decrypt the public key. Depends on what you want to do.
So how do you know which one you have? Like, could you choose whether you want to...
always have your private key. You should not have the public key. They are separate keys. You know,
so you should always have the private.
Yeah, you will know. You should always, the owner should always have the private key. That's why it's private. The public key is for everyone else.
Okay. And it's less vulnerable?
It's only less vulnerable when you are distributing it among loads of people.
Loads.
So I would not bring in the vulnerability aspect if I'm not talking about distribution, key distribution.
Okay, I'll get rid of that.
So if I'm going to be talking about key distribution, then whenever I'm talking about, say, symmetric encryption is more vulnerable, then I have to include the distribution to loads of people or a lot of people.
Why symmetric fast?
Because it's just one key, and for you
Oh, that explains.
use one key, yeah, you have to really physically see the person you are going to be sending the key to, or find a very secure way to make sure that that key doesn't fall into a bad hands. But the asymmetric key, you don't have to send your private key to anybody. It's with you.
Oh, that makes okay.
So symmetric encryption algorithms used are this excellent. Asymmetric encryption algorithm used is RSA, Diffie-Hellman. There's several other algorithms for asymmetric encryption. Now, why didn't you add that?
Excuse me, they were the main ones. RSA and Diffie-Hellman.
Yeah, but
What else is there? I don't think I saw any after.
Go and find out. If I tell you now, you still forget because I've before lots of times. So go and find out. You will see. And go to reputable sites to find that out.
Okie dokie.
We no longer use DES anymore, but DES, yes, could be symmetric.
3DS, man, then? 3DS?
3DS, yes, we still use 3DS. So I think you should scrap that. ROC4 is almost relegated nowadays, depends on what you're using it for, but some environment still has it. So you should be looking for the ones that are still active. And
so AES and 3DES, do you think?
Yeah.
So should I put 3DES and AES?
Yeah, 3DES and AES, then add two more to it, two more symmetric encryption algorithm. So you add two more asymmetric encryption algorithm to what we have here, Diffie-Hellman and RSA. So what is CIA triad? So you answered brilliantly, that's okay. Confidentiality, ability to not disclose information to unauthorized people, programs, or processes. I'll reverse it the other way when I'm answering confidentiality, is to only allow authorized, not unauthorized, only allow authorized people to have access to the information. So you have turned it the other way. You said to disallow or to ability.
Yeah, I see it like that, to be honest, not to. Confidential means just keeping it to yourself, you're not letting anyone see your information.
No, confidentiality is making sure that only the authorized people have access to the information.
So how can I say, so making sure only authorized people have access to information. Yes?
Yeah.
I'll write that down.
You can even say ability to disclose instead of not disclose, ability to disclose information to only authorized users.
So if confidentiality.
Ability to disclose information to only authorized users.
Only authorized.
Integrity, ensuring that data has not been tampered with and can be trusted. It is correct, authentic, and reliable. Yeah, has not been tampered with and can be trusted end to end. So it's correct, authentic, and reliable. Well, yeah, that's fine. Availability, ability for user to access information resources in the correct format. Not necessarily. It's ability for a user to access information when needed. Have information / resources when needed. And now it's not just ability for a user, ability for authorized users to access information, or ability for authorized users to access information and resources as at when needed or anytime there's a need for it. Okay.
And is it and should it not be in the correct format as well? Or
that correct format would have to do with integrity.
Okay.
so that
that's-
nothing has changed, everything is intact.
Okay. So
So that's
ability for authorized users to access information when needed.
yeah, to access information / resources when needed.
Yeah.
What do you understand by risk, vulnerability, and threat in a network?
Oh my God, thanks to you, I finally understand what a threat is, what a vulnerability is, and what a risk is.
You finally understood it, right?
Yeah, it's so much easier now.
Amazing. So someone with the ability to do harm to a system or organization, excellent. It doesn't have to actually be somebody. It could be an application, it could be a resource. It's just that thing should have a vector that's going to trigger it. But most times it's actually referring to someone.
Mhm.
Most times, but it's not all the time. So, vulnerability is a weakness of an asset that can be exploited by an attacker. Excellent. Risk is the possibility for loss or damage when a threat exploits, and when it exploits a vulnerability, not
Yes,
an.
I don't know.
Okay. How do you report risk? Excellent. Quantitative and qualitative methods. Those are the two main ways of
Yes.
reporting the risk. And both are suitable for technical and business people. So the business people will see the probable loss in numbers, while the technical people will monitor and assess the impact and frequency depending on the audience. The
Risk can then be reported.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
you have to do some sort of examination through quantitative or qualitative, get the business people and technical people involved, and then depending on the audience, the risk can then be reported, right?
Yeah, it can be reported in what format. So it depends on the audience. Yeah. So when it's most times we tend to submit the report in a qualitative way that has numbers. Sorry,
no,
not
that's quantitative.
Quantitative way that has numbers so that people can assign numbers to it. But there are some things that you cannot assign number to. For example, the brand name, for example, if something is going to happen to the business and the brand name is going to be affected, how do you put numbers to that? So it could either just be high, low, or medium. Sometimes business people want to know, what does high mean? What does it mean? How much are we going to lose by high? So if you put the score to it by just saying, okay, you've assigned this range of numbers from say 0 to 10, high will mean from 8 to 10, mid will mean from 7 to 4, and low will mean from 3 to 1, something like that.
Yeah.
So then that gives them an idea whenever you're saying high, medium, or low.
Oh, so you're using a bit mix numbers and.
Yes. So how do you differentiate between IPS and IDS system? Very simple. IDS stands for intrusion detection system. IPS stands for intrusion prevention system. IDS detects the intrusion and leave the rest to the administrator for assessment. IPS detects the intrusion and takes action to further prevent the intrusion. Excellent. What do you know about cybersecurity frameworks? Is voluntary guidance for organizations to better manage and decide cybersecurity risks, which is good. So an example is the ISO 27001 we just talked about.
Yes.
So most
frequently, DSS.
Yeah, it's even here now. Yeah, see, most frequently used cybersecurity frameworks are PCI DSS for mostly retail firms, payment card industry,
finance firms,
and that's very good. ISO 27001 international standard for standardization.
And last but not least, CSS and NIST
controls. You said? You said?
Yeah, CIS and NIST.
And NIST. So the NIST, you need to put the NIST numbers to it. So there's a special publications called SP. Then put the one that relating to cybersecurity, the special publications for cybersecurity. I think it's 583, something like that. So put it against this NIST one. So find the NIST publication that's relating to cybersecurity framework.
Oh,
Put it there.
I was gonna say SP series.
SPC means special publication.
A NIST, is it, what is that framework to do with?
NIST is designed by American Defense
Oh,
government.
okay.
So what they've done is to create such guidance that people can actually follow. It's more like a guidance for cybersecurity or for security generally. So they have one for risk, they have one for cybersecurity, they have one for networking, they have one for several other areas of technology.
Oh, okay.
So what is weak information security? Nancy, you're not answering.
I didn't prepare the question now. She prepared the question now. She's answering it. I didn't prepare the question.
Okay.
I'm just listening. Yeah.
Oh, no. Just listen. I want you to answer too.
I'm learning. I didn't prepare the question. Do you know?
Okay. I buy your excuse.
No, serious. Do you know where I'm coming from? I'm coming from outside London. I just got home like 7:30. I didn't know I was going to join the class. I had already said I was going to talk today.
Okay. This is very important anyway. So
listening.
I'll just finish this last one. Then what you will need to do is to go and find some security questions and answer the questions.
Do you know, in interviews,
I was going to wait till I finish this one I'm doing because it's taking my whole time.
Oh, is it Nancy, is it finished this week?
I'll finish on Friday.
Okay.
Next Friday.
Yeah, so yeah, that's why I've not been too doing anything. Do you get?
That's real information overload. Okay, that's good. At least you are learning something. That's a good part. What is?
I was gonna say, excuse me, 1 second. In interviews, right? How do they even?
How many questions?
How many questions? Yeah, how do they even go about asking these questions? Like, how does it work?
You can ask this most times because of the rush and the need for cybersecurity people.
Yeah.
What they tend to do is to ask these kind of questions. It's not really different from what I've taught you. If you really understand what I've taught you, there's almost no cybersecurity interview that you cannot pass.
Oh no.
If you really understand these different areas. But the things, I didn't try to go too deep so that you can still catch the information and run with it, because this is just 3 weeks. Cybersecurity is a lifelong thing. So
like, instead of like normal interviews where they ask you like what they called personal question, not personal, but like general questions, like how do you work in a team? Can you tell me when you've met deadlines or something like that?
Yeah. How do you work in a team? You've worked in a team. You've worked with Nancy. That's a team.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, are they going to be asking them sort of questions like working in a team?
That's maybe after you've done very well in all these technical bits.
So how will it be? Will there be a technical interview then? Or
it will always be a technical interview, except you are going in as a fresher.
So how so are they going to be asking these technical questions as well as general interview questions?
Yeah, after they've asked the technical bit, they can then move to the general ones and start asking you, how do you feel like working in a team?
So it's
an example of time you worked in a team? Or they might ask you, okay, has there been any scenario that you have seen that you can explain to us what you did to change the situation? So in those kind of questions, I always tell my students, refer back to troubleshooting sessions that we had, how you escalated the problem to a senior person, which is me, or maybe someone else in the team, that then we're able to troubleshoot it step by step, and we're able to resolve the problem after a long while. We're able to find what the root cause was, and then we're able to resolve the problem.
Another question is, if they ask you like, how do you solve, if you're given a problem, how do you go about solving it?
You first of all understand what the problem is. Then you take baby steps as to what you know based on the problem and start solving it from that point of view. And if the problem needs a more research work to be done, you can go ahead and do loads of research and make sure that you've covered all the bits that you can possibly do. And if still you can't solve that problem, you then escalate it to someone who can help out.
I actually remember answering that at an interview question, and I don't think they liked my answer by looking at them, because I felt like they must have wanted me to explain a bit more rather than just saying, I take steps, I understand the problem, I then do step by step try and solve the problem. If I don't understand, I research, and then if I still don't understand, I ask.
No, not if you don't understand, if you can't solve it. If I can't solve the problem, not if I don't understand. That's, you are saying totally different things. If I still cannot, after my research and I still can't solve the problem, I then escalate it to someone I know can solve the problem. And if there's no one that can solve the problem, I keep at it and do my best and make sure I'm able to solve the problem. I've had this experience in the place I worked in before. I can mention Tip Technologies again. I'm putting myself in your shoes, where the senior engineer was not around, and I'd researched and done all the work needed to fix the networking problem, and it wasn't going away. The problem was, then you can state what the problem was. The problem was trying to communicate from one network to another, and we are having issues. So later we found out that I found out that it was the gateway that was the problem. So I had to fix the gateway and make sure that the gateway was also was correctly put on the right interface. Then after that, we also found that there was a problem with the routing protocol. So the routing protocol that was being used was not distributing information across from end to end. So I reconfigured the routing protocols again, and then the network started working. So I can explain like that. Do you understand?
Wow. Yeah.
So something like that, can put that in your mind and use that as a scenario and explain that particular scenario. You've had this kind of scenarios even when you were doing your own labs. So use that idea to come up with an answer.
It's just being able to explain it, like.
You said?
Like what you just said about routing protocol, like.
Yeah, if you say routing protocol, then they now understand that this guy, you understand what routing protocol is. So they can then ask you how many routes.
What did you say about it? You said it wasn't configured, so you had to.
Yeah, it was misconfigured. So I had to reconfigure the routing protocols, the OSPF routing protocol, and make sure that all the different networks that needs to be advertised, then the traffic started flowing okay.
Okay, that's fine.
So the organization is not, what is weak information security? It is weak if the policy has not been made available for employees to see in the organization. The organization is not able to show that employees understand the content of the policy documents. Okay, a weak information security is simply what if they ask you what is weak information security? A security that has not been adopted is when the security is not been adopted as a culture within the organization, then information security is weak within that organization. So when a security policy that the organization has is being adopted and is being adopted as a culture within the organization, that tends to enhance the information security within that organization.
Yeah.
Instead of giving these kind of answers.
What if you say if it doesn't meet the effective criteria? Yeah,
one of the things you can actually say is if you are not there yet, if the information security of an organization is weak, one of the best ways to raise that information security to a strong point is through security awareness. Organize training sections for the employees to come for training sessions to teach them about different security attacks within the going on that's associated to that organization, then they are able to now take proactive steps to make sure that they adopt the culture that is needed for that security measure within the organization.
Mm-hmm. So what did you say before, sorry, about the policy?
Was I the one that said anything about the policy?
Yeah, you just said that the organization needs to adopt information security or something.
Yes, they have.
Could you explain that again? I'm just writing it down because I'm rewording this.
Oh my God, I don't know how. No, I can't remember what I've said. I'll say it again in a different way. So information security, weak information security is only noticeable when the organization, those within the organization, are not adopting the information security standards, which has been set in place.
When those are not adopting.
First of all, right, if the information security policy is not even, if you don't have a information security policy, definitely the information security policy within the organization will be weak. Now,
Yes.
if you have a very good information security policy and the organization has not adopted that information security policy as a way, as a culture, as a way of life within the organization, then the information security policy, the information security within the organization will still be weak.
Yeah. So I need to delete the second bullet point, to be honest, it doesn't make sense. So I'll keep it is weak if the policy has not been obviously adopted.
No.
In the organization.
Policy has not been written, if the security policy has not been written or made publicly available or make
okay, it's not been made available or written.
Not made available. If not been, because it can be made available and employees don't really know about it. If the policy has not been written or the policy has not been communicated well enough to the employees within the organization.
Policy has not been written or communicated
well enough to the employees
well enough
of the organization.
To employees within
the organization. Yeah.
Within. Okay.
So a way, sometimes when they ask you this question, they now say a way to improve the security, information security strength
is to create security awareness.
To create security awareness, exactly.
Yes.
Within the employees, okay, for the employees within the organization.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our class done today.
Excuse me, do you think it is necessary to do any more questions? Or
a lot more. I will need like 100 if possible.
100. Oh my God.
So find new questions and add to this. This is just 10. On the day of interview, you might be asked 21 questions. There are some people that have a list of, say, 30 things to ask. Asked anything about networking here, really? You've not asked anything about NATs?
The 30, is that like, how many questions do they ask, minimum?
I don't know. So it depends on the organization.
Oh my God, how can they ask 30 questions?
Yeah, they can. That's why you have to know it. You already know it. You already have a lot of knowledge. It's just for you to be able to apply that knowledge now. And these questions will help you apply the knowledge. The more the questions, the more you are aware as to how to answer the questions. Please update this document and send me the new document and add new questions and answers to it.
Yeah, I'll add more.
Yeah, so ask questions around networking, find questions around Splunk, find questions around ISO 27001, find questions around SCCP, for example, security standards in the cloud. Then 5 questions around cloud solutions. We've not done AWS.
Excuse me, I'll have to have a look. If obviously the main type of interview questions are the common ones, I will put down.
Okay, put those ones down first, then start including all the other ones, because sometimes the interviewer might just want to veer away a bit and ask you something that's not in the book.
What if it comes to a point where they ask a question and you're not able to answer? What do you do?
You don't know. You just say you don't know.
Okay.
What are you gonna do? Are you gonna forge the answer? It's not gonna come out.
But they won't think of that as a negative thing, would they? If you say you don't know.
That's sometimes it can be positive, because if you think you know everything, then it could be a problem for them, because they will not know when you really don't know.
Oh, okay. Right, I need to try my best to do.
Even till now, there are some questions they ask. I just say I've never heard that before in my life. So that's even worse than I don't know.
You never heard in your life.
Yeah.
And they don't say anything to that.
But I have to be more polite, maybe because of my level. That's why I can answer like that.
It's not fair. I wish I had like 50 years experience.
Well, it comes with time. So all the sacrifice that I've made is counting for me. So they can overlook those kind of rudeness.
Please could you tell us how your journey about when you first applied for like a beginner role, and then how you advanced, and if you don't mind.
Just write down what your experience with TIP Technologies when you started in January till now. So that's your journey.
Okay.
So that's your journey. And don't say it's for 3 months. No. Say it's for a period of 1 year, 12 months.
Yeah.
Because it's ongoing anyway. So if you
Okay.
say, because you've done a lot, you've really done a lot. So you will bring in all the manuals that you have written, all the training sections that you've had.
Excuse me to ask something that also, what kind of work did you do?
Yeah, the kind of work you did, mainly you were writing documentation, setting up labs for technology classes, and you're also solving internal problems, internal network problems, troubleshooting, making sure everybody's system is working okay, and making sure that the network is not vulnerable to attacks. So those kind of things. All these ones I've just told you now, I think you can just write them out so we can hear and see. So I think that's enough for today.